So, Trump's Justice Department had a bad day in court yesterday. Their cases against James Comey and Letitia James were both thrown out. But now the Pentagon could be hauling Democratic Senator and veteran Mark Kelly into a military tribunal. Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth is launching an investigation into Kelly over his video telling troops that they don't have to obey illegal orders. Here's what Senator Kelly had to say about that yesterday. Watch.
I said something that was pretty simple and non-controversial, and that was that members of the military should follow the law. And in response to that, Donald Trump said I should be executed. I should be hanged. I should be prosecuted. This is not about the law. This is about the media cycle, and it's about intimidation.
And then his Democratic colleague and fellow veteran Ruben Gallego set his sights on Hegseth's role in this whole thing. So let's look at that.
What would you say directly to Pete Hegseth, the Secretary of Defense, of course renamed the Secretary of War, about this issue?
Well, I think number one, you will never, ever, ever even be half the man that Senator Kelly is. You, sir, are a coward. And the fact that you are following this order from the president shows how big of a coward you are. And I can't wait till you no longer are the Secretary of Defense.
So the gloves are off. How far do you think they'll take this campaign against Kelly, especially given how things went with Comey and James? What do you think?
I don't imagine this is going to go very far. So listen, all of us watched that video of Democratic veterans talking about not following illegal orders. The language was very specific. That is something that I worked at the Pentagon to remind Joy. And it is the rank and... Because you never remember that I worked at the Pentagon.
You're like, I blocked the Pentagon.
But rank and file members from the first enlisted to four-star generals are taught that their duty is to the Constitution and they do not follow unlawful orders. This is something that is built into the military. There is no there. But I think the timing of Hegseth really cracking down on a distinguished veteran like Mark Kelly comes because he's being sidelined in these Ukraine negotiations. He's nowhere to be found in the discussions. In fact, Hegseth, a deputy of his, the Secretary of the Army, Dan Driscoll, has emerged as kind of a power player in this. So I think he's doing it to try to get in good with Trump, to be like, look, I'm fighting your fights for you. But it's going to go very similarly to how this Comey and Letitia James cases went, where when you do something that it doesn't look like there's merit there, it's going to fall apart, the president's going to be mad, and you're going to be embarrassed.
All right.
I think Pete, I mean, you're right. Let's face it, is Pete Hegseth really the best person to be running the Department of Defense? You know, he was supposed to surround himself with all the best people because DEI, diversity, equity, and inclusion is wrong. It looks like he's got a pretty non-diverse cabinet that's just completely unqualified and doesn't have any merit. But what's interesting to me is that, you know, Trump is on this revenge campaign against his political enemies. And it's just, at least in my view, the law is working, the courts are working, because when you have an inexperienced insurance lawyer who has never prosecuted a case go in front of the grand jury, a federal grand jury, to try to get an indictment, and you can generally indict a ham sandwich. That is actually really true. If you are a federal prosecutor that knows what she is doing, she couldn't even get an indictment. And the indictment, well, she got an indictment, but it was thrown out because the judge said that she's just not qualified. So this is, we're seeing this.
She looks like the other one. They
all look alike.
Yeah.
So we're seeing this like.
Trump has a type.
Yeah, we're seeing this overreach from the executive branch, and we're seeing people like a Pete Hegseth enabling it. And I think finally people are catching on.
Look, whenever Trump does something that is patently absurd, ask yourself why and what the motivation is. I think he is trying to distract the American public from the Epstein files.
Yeah.
The clock is ticking on that.
Yeah.
I think he's trying to distract the American people and Republicans from the fact that Republicans were rejected in the elections 3 weeks ago.
The economy.
The fact that he's got breaking in his ranks for the first time in his administration.
Yeah.
The fact that people can't afford groceries, can't buy houses, that affordability has become a very big deal. And so instead, let's mount this spectacle where we are hauling a national hero, Mark Kelly, is a naval aviator who served 39 flights
And
in
an
combat.
astronaut. An astronaut.
Yes, but he was.
Yeah.
But, okay, one thing is to be an astronaut. One thing is to be at war. And let me remind
Of course,
people
but they're both
that the guy
hero spots.
who is tweeting threats against him, because to retweet somebody calling for death and calling Mark Kelly and the other 5 seditious traitors, that in this environment is frankly, just so irresponsible, grossly irresponsible. After just 2.5 months ago, Charlie Kirk was killed because of political violence, and we were all told to bring the rhetoric down. Well, the rhetoric needs to go down starting from the top.
Well,
and so if Donald Trump is doing this, he needs to, he needs to be the first to set an example.
And know who you're talking to. He's not only a national hero, but he's the husband of someone who was shot in the head at an event. He is the epitome of the beginning of some of the most damning examples of political violence we've seen. So know who you're talking to. But I also we always talk about how Trump came in on America First. A week ago, we saw him defending a Saudi prince over a reporter. And now he's turning to a deep public servant that he disagrees with and jumps straight to traitor, hang him. You've got to have some perspective on what you're stoking here. Because I would argue that what Mark Kelly did was, Alyssa, reading what's already obvious. These are the oaths they take. They're repeating it in case people that they can relate to in our military services are put into a situation, which for the first time in our history, they may. Remember when Mark Esper had to tell Donald Trump he couldn't shoot protesters in the legs?
Oh, yeah.
So, there's the Constitution and laws, lawful and legal things, and then there's shoot the protesters in the legs. They might come up against a situation like that.
What's going on? Is he just losing it a little bit?
I don't know, but he should be working on the cost of this. Another investigation. Every time they throw down a ceremonial investigation that is feckless, pointless, and has already been
millions
dismissed,
of dollars to
it's
the taxpayers.
time. But that just is another day where all these people are not doing something to actually help American lives.
Two things. Number one, I think that this whole thing that's happening with Mark Kelly is propping him up to be a presidential candidate. So be careful what you do.
He was
Number
on the
one.
short list for Kamala as a vice president.
Yeah, that's right.
And Senator Alyssa Slotkin,
Love her.
she says that she's one of the people who said don't obey an illegal order. She says she's getting military members coming up to her worried about what they're being asked to do. Watch this clip.
The reason we put that statement out is because the sheer number of, frankly, young officers who are coming to us and saying, I just am not sure. What do I do? I'm in Southcom and I'm involved in the National Guard. I'm just not sure. What do I do? And I think, look, you don't have to take my word for it. We've had report after report of legal officer, JAG officers coming forward and saying, look, I push back on this. I'm not sure that this is legal.
Wow. So, there's a movie called Nuremberg playing right now, which I recommend to everybody to see. It's about the Nuremberg trials of the Nazis after World War II. And following orders is not a defense.
No, it's not.
So these soldiers have to pay attention. So these are the things that she's talking about. Carrying out military strikes on boats in the Caribbean without congressional approval. That's an illegal order.
Yeah.
As you say, shooting protesters in the legs, as Mark Esper said.
Seems like an obvious.
That would be
But I think we have to be
activity,
careful in
but-
conflating those, though.
Well, these are things that could be potentially construed as illegal orders, using our
this is
major
where-
our major American cities as training grounds for the military.
I think that this is actually a much broader conversation about congressional authorization because there have been many military strikes under many presidents that have not gone through congressional authorization. And you would have a major problem at the Pentagon if you had rank and files raising their hands saying, well, I don't know if this got congressional authorization.
Well, they have a commander who needs to pay
But I
attention
do think
to the Constitution.
when you're talking about a very clear example like Mark
Shooting
Esper
people in
saying
the
we're
legs.
shooting protesters, every uniformed member of our U.S. military knows that is illegal and they should reject that order.
Well, how do they
remember
know
that-
that? When Trump
They know
was saying
it's in
do
their
it.
training.
But let's
They
remember
absolutely
the head of Southcom, Southern Command, which is where these military actions being taken against Venezuela and against boats in the Caribbean are originating from. The Admiral Alvin Holsley, who was overseeing Southcom, announced his retirement, and in part, it's because he doesn't want to be part of what is not being, of what is being done without much justification.
But guys,
or
we've droned
explanation.
people abroad without due process. Like, there's things America has bigger issues that are bigger than Donald Trump. I'd be very careful about saying the U.S. military should stand up and defy orders from their generals, they should pay attention to the clear unlawful orders. You know when an order is outside of the Constitution.
That they cannot follow.
People seem to not understand what part of illegal don't they get.
Yeah, but
they
at least
know.
24 admirals and generals, the most unprecedented presidential term, have left under Donald Trump because the military knows how to do its job. And when asked to do something that's not, we have seen more than ever leave this administration.
He's also fired a bunch of them.
We've seen prosecutors leave as well because
some were fired.
If you prosecute someone without legal merit, you can also be disbarred. You can lose your job. You can be prosecuted yourself.